You ever hear a crowd laugh and feel it in your teeth? That's what Maybelle Collins felt, standing on splintered boards, in Las Palomas Square, New Mexico Territory, 1892. The sun was so bright, it felt personal. May wasn't crying, not anymore. Crying was for people who expected help to show up. May had learned a different skill, standing still while your insides shake. The auctioneer lifted his chin like this was regular business. Like he wasn't peeling dignity off a human being in public. He slapped a thick ledger on the table. Debt labor sale, he announced. 2-year term, food and board included. Food and board, like she was a broken mule. Like she didn't have a name. He finally said it slow and ugly. Maybelle Collins, 58. A man laughed, not loud, just enough to let her know he could. Someone shrugged like it was just business. The auctioneer tried to sweeten the cruelty. She can still scrub, still cook, still mend. He grinned, waiting for the jokes to land. 2 women chuckled. One muttered, "Who'd feed an old hen that don't lay?" May kept her chin level. Because pride was the last thing she owned that nobody could auction. Off to the side stood Wade Collins. Wade Collins, the boy she raised, and the man the papers called her guardian. His hat brim was low. His hands were tight around it. But he wouldn't look up. May stared at him anyway. And for 3 seconds a memory hit her like winter. Bare feet on cold floorboards. A child burning with fever. Crying her name like it was the only rope in the dark. May, she'd held him all night. Whispered promises into his hair. Swore she'd never let the world take him. And now he couldn't even meet her eyes. May swallowed hard. The crowd blurred. The auctioneer raised his voice. "Who'll start us at $20? $20 for almost 6 decades of breath, for a lifetime of work, for a heart that never quit even when people did." Hands stayed down, not because they felt shame, because they felt clever. Why pay for old when you could buy young and break them longer? May's mouth went dry. This is how it ends, she thought, on a platform, with strangers counting my worth like I'm flour. Then a bootstep hit the dirt, heavy, certain. The laughter didn't stop right away, it just hesitated, and a man's voice cut through the square, clean and cold. "She's not for sale." 3 seconds of silence, like the whole town forgot how to breathe. People turned. A stranger pushed forward. Early 30s, coat patched at the elbow, boots worn thin at the toes. He smelled like sweat and horse work, not money. His eyes were storm gray. The kind of eyes that had seen loss and decided it wasn't taking anything else. The auctioneer blinked. "Sir, you can't." The man stepped to the table and dropped folded bills down hard. Thwack. Dust jumped. A couple coins rolled from the clerk's jar like they got spooked. The crowd murmured. Because even the cruelest people understand money. The man didn't puff his chest. Didn't smile. He just said, low and final, "That money isn't for her. It's to shut this down." The auctioneer licked his lips. "This is lawful debt," her guardian agreed. The stranger's head tilted slightly toward Wade. "Yeah," he said. "And that's the problem." May's voice came out before she could stop it, clear, worn, steady. "1 sack of flour," she said. Quiet fell again. The stranger's jaw flexed like he hated every syllable. "1 sack," he repeated, disgusted. May nodded once. "Wade's wife said drought's killing the pantry. Said I'm another mouth. Said I'm done." She didn't say more. She didn't need to. The stranger picked up the bills, counted quick, and set them down in a neat stack. "That clears the note," he said, "and then some." He tapped the ledger once with a knuckle. "But listen real close. This woman doesn't owe you her life." He looked at the crowd, then the auctioneer, then Wade. Wade finally lifted his face. His eyes were wet, but his feet didn't move. May felt something crack inside her, not her strength, something softer, a hope she didn't trust. The stranger turned to her then and his voice changed. Still firm but careful. "I'm Eli Carter," he said. "I got a ranch south of here." He exhaled like the next words cost him pride. "It's rough. It's honest. And I need help." He held her gaze. "I'll pay you wages. Real wages. You eat at the table. You sleep behind a door that locks. And if you ever want to leave, you tell me. No drama, no guilt, just choice." May stared at him. This could be another cage with a nicer paint job. So she made her voice count. "If I come," she said, steady as stone, "it's as a worker, not a stray you picked up." Eli didn't hesitate. "Deal." He extended his hand open-palmed, not grabbing, not demanding, just offering. May looked at it, her fingers trembled as she reached out. Her hand was weathered, veins raised, skin marked by lye soap and heat and years. She put it in his. Eli's grip was warm, steady, like he was anchoring her to the earth. The auctioneer cleared his throat, suddenly awkward. "Well then, debt is settled." The crowd began to disperse, whispering like wind through dry brush. May stepped off the platform. Her feet hit dirt. It felt like landing in a new life. Eli guided her through the thinning crowd. Behind them, Wade called out, voice cracking. "Aunt May." May didn't turn, not because she didn't love him, but because she finally understood something. Love without loyalty is just noise. And if that line hit you, if you've ever loved someone who still left you hanging, tap like, hit subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Because stories like this don't survive unless you share them. Eli led May toward a plain wagon at the edge of the square. Nothing fancy. No big talk, just a way out. May climbed in slowly. Her joints complained, but her spine stayed straight. Eli swung up beside her and took the reins. The horses pulled. The town shrank behind them. Dust followed them like the place was trying to forget. Eli didn't speak for a moment. Then quietly, almost like an apology to the air, "I'm sorry it happened like that." May kept her eyes forward. "It happens the way it always happens," she said, "until it doesn't." Eli glanced at her. A flicker crossed his face, like he understood that sentence a little too well. They rode on. Back in the square, a man in a clean vest stepped out of the shade. Not a farmer, not a ranch hand. A clerk. He watched the wagon disappear. Then he opened a leather-bound ledger and flipped pages like he was hunting a name. His finger stopped. His lips moved like he tasted the words. "Eli Carter." He closed the book with a soft snap. And as he walked toward the courthouse, a thought settled over the scene. Men like Crown didn't chase people. They moved paper, and people disappeared. If you're still here, you already know this isn't just a feel-good rescue. So subscribe, because part 2 gets darker, and share this with somebody who's been treated like they expired. Because what happens next is what power does when you embarrass it. The clerk reached the courthouse steps and met a tall man waiting in the shade. Polished boots, silver ring, eyes like a locked door. The clerk held up the ledger. "Mr. Crown," he said, "we found him." Silas Crown didn't smile. He just looked down the road May and Eli had taken like he already owned it. Then he said, calm as Sunday, "Good." And somewhere in the distance, far behind that wagon, a bell rang. Not church, court. And Maybelle Collins, without even knowing why, felt the future turn its head toward her. The wagon didn't glide. It argued with every bump. Wood creaked, leather straps squealed, and the wheels kicked up dirt that chased them like the town didn't want to let go. Maybelle Collins sat with her hands folded in her lap, not because she was calm. After public humiliation, your body doesn't trust quiet. Eli Carter held the reins like he'd been born with them, but his shoulders stayed tight. He wasn't relaxed. He was braced. Like trouble could come riding up behind them any second. They rode a long stretch before May spoke. "You didn't have to do that." Eli didn't even look over. "Yeah," he said, "I did." It wasn't pride, it was certainty. May swallowed once. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Eli's jaw flexed. "I told you," he said, "I need help, I pay for it." He glanced at her quick. "And I don't do cages." May stared at him for a beat. Then she nodded once. "Fair." The road dipped into open land, mesquite, scrub, dry gullies. A hawk circled overhead like it had all the time in the world. Near sunset, the ranch appeared. It wasn't a picture. It was a fight that hadn't ended yet. A sagging gate. Fence posts leaning like tired men. A barn missing boards like teeth. But it was quiet. No shouting. No eyes weighing her. Eli jumped down and walked to the gate. No snapping fingers, no orders, he just opened it himself. May felt that in her chest, not love, not trust, something simpler, respect. They rolled through and stopped near a small house. Not fancy, not big, but standing. Eli came around to help her down. May hesitated. She hated needing help. Then she reminded herself, this isn't weakness. This is a new rule. She took his hand and stepped into the yard. Her boots hit the dirt. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was trespassing in her own life. Inside, the house smelled like old coffee and saddle leather, like soap that didn't get used enough, like a man living on survival, not comfort. Eli walked her down the hall and opened a door. A small room, a narrow bed, a folded quilt, a wash basin with clean water, and the wildest thing in the whole place, a lock on the inside. May stared at it like it was a miracle somebody forgot to take away. Eli stayed in the doorway, giving her space. "You're not a guest," he said. "And you're not a servant." He pointed at the bed. "That's yours." He pointed at the lock. "And that's yours too." May's throat tightened. "You got rules?" she asked. Eli nodded. "One rule," he said. "Respect. Both ways." May let out a slow breath. "All right then," she whispered. Eli stepped back. "I'll start supper," he said. "Tomorrow we see what we're working with." He shut the door gentle. May stood alone in the quiet. Her fingers touched the lock. Click, it hit her right in the ribs. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. Hands that had scrubbed floors until skin split. Hands that had kneaded bread out of almost nothing. Hands that had held a feverish child through winter nights. She didn't cry, she just whispered low. "Okay," she said. "Okay, May." Then she stood up. Because she didn't come here to be saved. She came here to live. Supper was beans and bread and coffee. Coffee that tasted like regret. But Eli sat across from her at the table. Not above her. Not beside her like a guard, across. Like a partner. May watched his hands. Scarred knuckles. Nails black with work. A faint tremor when he lifted the cup. Not fear, something older. Eli cleared his throat. "I got a plan," he said. May raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah," she replied. He nodded toward the window. "East fence is busted. Troughs leaking. Barn's half a sneeze away from falling down." May chewed and swallowed. "So basically," she said dry, "you got yourself a mess." Eli almost smiled, almost. "Pretty much." May leaned back. "And your plan is me?" Eli looked straight at her. "My plan is work," he said. "You, me, both." Then quiet as truth, "I can't afford hired hands, not right now." There it was, no pity, no hero speech, just reality. May nodded once. "Sunrise," she said. "We start." Eli blinked like he hadn't expected her to say it that fast. "You sure?" he asked. "I don't want you pushing," May cut him off. "I've been pushing since I was 12, she said. "I didn't survive all that just to sit pretty now." Eli looked down at his plate, jaw tight. "Fair," he said. Morning came cold and pale. May woke before the sun like her bones had an alarm clock. She opened her door and stopped. A pair of boots sat outside, old but solid, wrapped in cloth like the gift itself was shy. May picked them up. They were her size. She walked into the kitchen wearing them. Eli looked down, then up. "Fit?" he asked. May nodded. "Yeah, a beat. Thanks." Then she added, firm but soft, "I'll earn 'em." Eli didn't smile, he just nodded like that was obvious. "I know." They stepped outside. The ranch looked worse in daylight, wire slack. Posts crooked, the trough dripping like an insult that wouldn't stop. Eli handed her a hammer. "These posts weigh about 50 pounds, he warned. "Don't strain yourself." May stared at him. Then she bent down and hefted one post like it was an old habit. She shifted it to her shoulder. Then she hooked the second one with a grunt, effort showing, and started walking anyway. Eli froze. "Ma'am," May didn't stop. "I'm not made of paper," she called back. "Quit talking like I'll fall apart if the wind sneezes." Eli stood there, stunned. Then quiet and raw, "What did they do to you?" he asked. May paused just long enough to let it land. "They used what I had," she said, and kept moving. "They worked the day into shape. Not pretty work, real work. Hands stung. Sweat burned eyes. The sun punished the back of the neck like it had a grudge. But little by little, the ranch looked less dead, and May felt less invisible. Near midday, Eli set a canteen down beside her. Not handed like charity, placed like partnership. They sat under a mesquite that didn't give much shade but tried. May drank. Eli stared at the land like he was doing math only grief could understand. May watched him. "You're running from something," she said. Eli's shoulders stiffened. "I'm working," he answered. May leaned in slightly. "That ain't the same thing," she said. Eli didn't speak for a long time, then his voice came out low. "My wife and my boy got sick 3 years ago." May's breath caught. Eli kept his eyes on the horizon. "Fever came through, hit this valley hard. I rode to town for medicine." His hand tightened around the canteen. "When I got back," he swallowed, "the house was quiet." He blinked once hard. Even the flies were quiet. May felt that line in her bones. "I buried them myself," he finished. He exhaled like he hated the air. "I don't want the ranch to die too." May nodded slowly. "All right," she said. "Then we don't let it." Eli finally looked at her. Something like gratitude crossed his face. Then dust on the horizon, too big to be cattle. May stood up. Eli stood up faster. "No dust is that angry unless it's men," May said. 5 riders came hard across the land. Their horses were lathered like they rode fast on purpose. They didn't wave, didn't slow. They pulled up like they belonged here. The lead man smirked. He looked Eli up and down like a man checking the price of a thing. Then his eyes slid to May, and he smiled like he'd found something he could break. "Eli Carter," he said. "Mr. Crown sends his regards." Eli's voice went flat. "What do you want?" The rider gestured around the ranch like he was shopping. "Simple," he said. "Sell the South Acres." Eli didn't blink. "No," the rider's smile widened. "That's a bad answer," he said. He pointed at the barn. "Dry season. Fires start easy. Accidents happen." May's stomach dropped because that wasn't a threat. That was a schedule. She stepped forward, hammer still in her hand. "You boys ride a long way just to run your mouths," she said. The rider's eyes narrowed. "And who are you?" May lifted her chin. "I'm the woman you're not gonna scare," she said. The rider chuckled once and reached into his coat. He pulled out a folded paper and flicked it open. "Got something official," he said to Eli. Eli took it. His eyes scanned the page. All the blood left his face. May leaned close enough to read the heading. "Seizure order, stamped, filed, cold." The rider tapped the paper. "Filed at the courthouse," he said. "Enforced by the county." Eli's hand started shaking. The rider leaned closer, voice turning quiet. "Crown says you got 3 days." Then he glanced at May like she was part of the inventory. "And Crown says the old woman's included." May's heart slammed. So this wasn't just land. This was a machine, debt, paper, law, power. And she was still written down like something to be owned. The riders turned their horses like it was already done, like the ranch already belonged to Crown. Eli crushed the paper in his fist. "I won't let him take you," he said, rough. May tightened her grip on the hammer. "Good," she replied, "because I'm not going back." A gust of wind rolled through the yard, and May froze because she smelled it. Oil, the kind you don't smell unless somebody plans to burn something. That night the ranch didn't feel quiet. It felt like it was holding its breath. Eli shoved the seizure order into the stove like paper could burn the truth away. The flame took it fast, but the deadline stayed in the room. 3 days. Maybelle Collins sat at the table with her hands flat on the wood. Not ringing, not shaking, just steady. Eli paced. 2 steps, turn, 2 steps, turn, like pacing could change a verdict. "They can't do this," he said. May watched him. "Paper doesn't care who it crushes," she replied. Eli stopped and looked at her. "He said you're included," he said, "like you're part of the land." May's voice didn't rise. "Because Crown don't see me," she said. "He sees leverage." Eli's jaw tightened. "We go to the sheriff," he said. "Tonight." May nodded once. "Good," she said, "and we don't go alone." Eli blinked. May stood and reached for the lantern. "Lantern," she said. "Witness? Somebody who ain't scared of courthouse talk." Eli hesitated, then whistled sharp. A minute later, an old man stepped from the shadows like he'd been part of the ranch all along. Manuel Ortega, neighbor. A widower with a face carved by sun and grief. He didn't ask questions. He just lifted his own lantern and climbed into the wagon. "Let's go," Ortega said. They rode into town under a thin moon. The sheriff's office was still lit, and the light wasn't warm. It was waiting. Sheriff Harlan Pike sat behind his desk with coffee in his cup and calm in his eyes. His hat hung neat on the wall. His gun belt was polished like a sermon. He looked up like he'd been expecting them. "Well," Pike said, "Eli Carter." Eli stepped forward, voice tight. "Crown sent riders to my land," Eli said. "Threatened fire, gave me a seizure notice." May placed the paper on Pike's desk. Pike read it slow, too slow, then set it down careful like it belonged to him. "That's filed," he said. "Official." Eli leaned in. "So stop it." Pike's mouth made a small shape like he hated bad news. "A court filing is a court filing," he said. "If it's legal, it's legal." Ortega's lantern stayed lifted. His eyes stayed on Pike. No blinking. May watched the sheriff's hands, too clean, too calm. Eli jabbed a finger at the paper. "And the threat," he snapped. "The barn, the fire talk." Pike shrugged. "Hard to arrest a man for talk," he said, "unless you got proof." May's eyes narrowed. "And if we bring proof?" she asked. Pike leaned back, smile polite. "If you've got proof," he said, "bring it to me." His smile didn't reach his eyes. They left the office with the same problem they walked in with. Outside, Eli cursed. "Useless," he muttered. May stared back at the sheriff's window, light still on. "Like a signal." "We're on our own," she said. Eli's shoulders dropped for half a heartbeat. Then he nodded. "All right," he said. "Then we move." Back at the ranch, Eli checked doors and corners like a man who'd learned what loss sounds like. May moved different, not frantic. Hunting. She searched for what didn't belong. Behind the barn, under a loose board, she found it, a rag stiff with oil, hidden like a promise. May held it up. Eli's face went flat. "They were here," he said. May didn't flinch. "Yeah," she replied, "and they'll be back." Eli inhaled like he was trying to keep anger from becoming something worse. "We should sleep in shifts," he said. May shook her head. "Sleeping scared makes you sloppy," she said. "We do this clean." Eli stared. "What's your plan?" he asked. May looked at the barn. "We let 'em think we're asleep," she said, "and we catch 'em doing it." Eli's eyes narrowed. "You want to bait arson?" he asked. May's voice dropped solid. "I want alive," she said, "and I'm done letting men like Crown decide the ending." Eli held her gaze, then nodded slow. "All right," he said, "your way." They killed the lanterns, kept what they needed close. House dark, ranch quiet. May sat near the back window with a shotgun Eli insisted on loading. She didn't love guns, but she loved cages less. Eli stayed by the front door listening. Hours dragged by. The ranch creaked. Wind brushed dry grass. A coyote called far off. Then a scrape, soft, metal on wood. May's eyes snapped open. Eli turned, silent. Another sound, footsteps near the barn. May's heart hit hard once. Eli mouthed stay. May ignored him. She slipped out the back, low and quiet, moving like years had trained her better than any man could. Eli followed, slower. They crept toward the barn. The smell hit first. Oil, fresh. Then the shadow. A man crouched at the wall, match in hand. May stepped forward and leveled the shotgun. "Drop it," she said. The match froze. The man turned, not one of the riders, younger, nervous. Hat pulled low. Hands shaking like he'd been crying before he even got there. Eli's voice came behind May, cold. "Set it down," Eli said. The man swallowed hard. He let the match fall into the dirt. May didn't shout, didn't rush. "Who sent you?" she asked. The man's eyes flicked between them. "Crown," he whispered. "I didn't wanna, I swear I didn't wanna." Eli grabbed his collar and slammed him back against the boards. "You were about to burn my barn," Eli growled. The man flinched. "I got a family," he choked out. "He said he'd take my land if I didn't do it." May watched the fear in him and recognized it. Crown didn't just threaten people, he owned them through panic. Eli looked at May. "This is it," he said. "Proof." May nodded. "Yes," she said. "And we bring daylight." They rode into town with the man between them, Ortega right behind, lantern high even as dawn tried to wake up. Sheriff Pike opened the office door in his undershirt like they interrupted nothing. He looked from Eli to May to Ortega to the trembling man. Then his eyes landed on the oil rag in May's hand. "Well," Pike said slowly, "look at that." Eli shoved the man forward. "He was striking a match at my barn," Eli said. "He confessed Crown sent him." The man nodded fast. "I did," he blurted. "I swear it, Crown." For 1 second Eli's shoulders dropped like the fight was finally fair. Then Pike moved. Not loud, not angry, smooth. His fingers brushed a bottle on the desk like he'd been saving it for this. A deputy's hand drifted close behind the man's back, quick as a pickpocket. Pike leaned in and sniffed, slow and theatrical. "Son," Pike said, "you smell like whiskey." The man's eyes went wide. "I didn't drink," he pleaded. "I didn't," Eli snapped. "That's a lie." Pike straightened, calm as a man choosing paperwork. "And you," Pike said to Eli, "dragged a drunk into town, waved a gun, threatened a citizen." Ortega stepped forward, lantern still up. "That's not what happened," Ortega said, voice rough. Pike looked at Ortega like he was a fly. Then back to Eli. "You're getting loud," Pike said, "and I don't like loud." Two deputies appeared like they'd been standing just out of sight. Pike nodded toward Eli. "Put him in irons." Eli took 1 step back. "You can't be serious," he said. Pike's smile barely moved. "I am," he said, "and Eli, don't make it worse." May stepped forward, eyes sharp. "He tried to burn us," she said. "You can smell the oil on him." Pike didn't look at the oil. He looked at May. "Ma'am," he said, soft and fake, "this is county business." May's jaw tightened. "I'm standing right here," she said. Pike ignored it. He leaned toward the deputies. "Take Carter." They grabbed Eli. Eli fought once, not wild. Instinct, and that was all Pike needed. "Assaulting an officer," Pike said, almost satisfied. "Add it." May moved toward Eli. A deputy blocked her. Eli's boots dragged as they hauled him back. May's voice rose. "Eli?" Eli twisted his head toward her, eyes raw. "Don't you let him take you," he said. The cell door slammed. Metal on metal. Final. May stood there, breathing hard. Sheriff Pike dusted his hands like he'd just finished chores. Then he leaned toward her, voice low. "Go home," he said, "or you'll end up in a cell too." May didn't blink. She turned and walked out. Not because she was done, because she was planning. She didn't run. She counted exits, counted men, counted lies. Outside, dawn bled into the street, and there he was. Wade Collins, standing by the courthouse steps, hat in his hands. He took a step toward her. "Aunt May," he whispered. May stopped. Her body went cold. Because Wade wasn't alone. Beside him stood the clean-vested clerk with a ledger tucked under his arm, Crown's paper man. The clerk opened the ledger like it was scripture. Wade's voice shook. "They told me I had to," he said. "They said you signed." May's eyes narrowed. "I don't sign names," she said. Wade blinked. May's voice stayed flat. "I sign an X." The clerk slid a paper forward. May looked down. Her name was there, full cursive, fancy, clean. A lie dressed up like law. At the top, lifetime labor agreement. May's stomach turned. Wade whispered, breaking, "They said it's legal." The clerk smiled politely. "Congratulations," he said. "Court says you belong to Mr. Crown." May lifted her eyes slow. Her fear didn't spike. It settled into something colder. Then a sharp smell on the wind. Oil, fresh. May turned her head toward the edge of town. And in the early light she saw it. Smoke. Rising from the direction of Eli's ranch. Not a lot, just enough to be a message. May's voice came out low. "I didn't sign this." The clerk shrugged. "Court says you did." Wade reached for her arm. "Please," he begged. "They'll take everything." May stepped back like his touch burned. Her eyes stayed on the smoke. Crown wasn't waiting 3 days. He was starting now. Smoke has a way of making decisions for you. Maybelle Collins didn't stand there arguing with the wind. She didn't freeze. She moved. The courthouse paper still sat in the clerk's hands like a weapon. Wade was still pleading like his tears could unsell what he'd done. But May's eyes stayed on that thin gray column rising beyond town. Eli's ranch. Eli's barn. Crown's message. May turned away from Wade without a word. Wade reached again, desperate. "Aunt May." May stopped just long enough to look at him, not angry, worse, clear. "You sold me for peace," she said, "and peace never lasts for people like us." Then she walked. The clerk called after her, smug. "You leave town and you'll be violating county order." May didn't look back. "Then write it down," she said. She hit the livery like she owned it. The stable hand started to protest until he saw her face. May yanked tack off a hook, cinched the saddle tight, checked the knot twice, hands steady, because she'd spent her whole life doing hard things while people assumed she couldn't. She swung up and kicked the gelding forward. As she rode out, she heard hoofbeats behind her. Manuel Ortega. Old Ortega rode up beside her like he'd been there the whole time, just off camera. Lantern still hooked to his saddle even in daylight. "You going alone?" he asked. May's eyes stayed forward. "No," she said. "I'm going where it burns." They rode hard. The smoke thickened. The smell hit first. Oil, then heat. By the time they hit the ranch line, the barn wasn't fully gone, but fire had teeth. It chewed at one corner board by board, greedy and patient. May slid off the saddle before the horse even stopped. She ran to the trough, grabbed a bucket, and started hauling water. Ortega was already moving too, throwing sand, tearing dry hay away from the wall so it wouldn't catch. Buckets, throws, buckets, throws. Then the flame jumped. A sudden lick of orange climbed the side like it found a ladder. For one sharp second, May's stomach dropped. This is it. We lose it. Ortega ripped a hay bundle free with both arms and dragged it into the dirt, stamping it down. The fire starved just enough to stumble. May found the rag wedged behind a beam, oil-soaked, fresh. She yanked it free, flung it down, and stamped it out like she was stamping out a lie. Ortega panted beside her. "They lit the corner," he said, "but they didn't stay to feed it." May nodded, eyes hard. "Yeah," she replied. "This wasn't about burning it down. It was about telling us they can." She glanced at the dark house. Eli wasn't there. Because Eli was in a cage. May wiped sweat with her wrist and looked at Ortega. "I need two things," she said. "A wagon, and a witness Crown can't buy." Ortega didn't hesitate. "I know a man," he said. "Reverend Caldera." May's eyes narrowed. "The church man?" she asked. Ortega nodded. "He don't like Crown," he said, "and he don't like Pike." May's mouth tightened. "Good," she said, "because I'm done being polite." They rode back toward town with smoke still clinging to May's clothes. Before they hit Main Street, Ortega peeled off toward the chapel. May went straight to the jail. The building sat like a warning. Thick walls, small windows, a place designed to make you feel small. May walked in like stone didn't scare her. A deputy looked up, bored. "Visiting hours," May leaned forward. "I'm here to see Eli Carter," she said. "Not today," the deputy said. May didn't blink. "I wasn't asking." The deputy started to rise, and Ortega stepped in behind her, quiet but heavy. Then Reverend Caldera entered, tall, calm eyes, Bible in one hand, a notebook in the other. He didn't look like trouble. That's what made him dangerous. "Deputy," Caldera said smoothly, "I'm here as spiritual counsel." The deputy's face tightened. "We don't." Caldera lifted the notebook. "I keep records," he said, "for the Lord and for the town." The deputy hesitated. "Because some men feared God more than Crown." He jerked his chin. 2 minutes. May didn't waste a second. She stepped to the bars. Eli stood fast, bruised at the cheekbone, eyes locked on her like he needed proof she was still free. "May," he whispered. "You hurt?" she asked. Eli shook his head. "I'm fine," he lied. May ignored it. "My barn," Eli started, voice tight. "Still standing," May said. "Barely." Eli closed his eyes like he was swallowing rage. May lowered her voice. "They've got a paper saying I belong to Crown," she said. "It's a forgery." Eli's eyes snapped open. "How do you prove it?" May lifted her hand, palm out. "I don't sign names," she said. "I sign an X." Eli nodded once. "That helps." May leaned closer, steel in her voice. "He started the fire early," she added. "He ain't waiting 3 days." Eli gripped the bars. "May," he said raw, "I don't survive losing you." May held his gaze, not romance, not soft, truth. "Then don't," she said. "Fight with me." A beat. Eli exhaled. "There's a circuit judge coming through in 2 days," he said. "Judge Ashford." May's eyes sharpened. "A judge," she repeated. Eli nodded. "And Crown's hosting," he added like it tasted bitter. "If Crown's hosting, the judge is already halfway bought." May turned to Caldera. "You hear that?" she asked. Caldera's pen moved in his notebook. "I hear it," he said, "and I can get close." May nodded once. Good, she said. We don't beg. She looked Eli dead in the eyes. We put him in daylight, she said, and make him answer. The deputy smacked the bars with his baton. Time. May didn't linger. She stepped back, eyes still on Eli. Hold, she said. Eli nodded. I will, he replied. May left the jail with Ortega and Caldera, plan burning hotter than the barn ever did. She went straight to the print shop. Ink, hot metal. A young typesetter looked up, nervous. Ma'am, we're closed. May set the oil rag on the counter. Somebody tried to burn a ranch, she said, and the sheriff pretended not to see it. The boy swallowed. You want broadsheets? May pointed at Caldera's notebook. That man writes what he sees, she said, and I'm about to give you a story Crown can't bury. The typesetter hesitated. Crown will. May's eyes went hard. Crown already did, she said, to me, to Eli, to half this town. She slid a coin across the counter, not a bribe, a commitment. Print it, she said, and put it in every hand that thinks Crown is untouchable. The boy stared at her, then nodded. All right, he said. All right. By late afternoon, the town started to change. Not loud, not yet, but different. One man read the sheet twice, then folded it careful and walked straight toward the courthouse like he'd been waiting years. Women passed it hand to hand without smiling. Men stopped shrugging. Fear started turning into something else. Anger has a sound. It's quieter than panic, but it lasts longer. May walked the street with Ortega and Caldera. Then Wade stepped into her path again. His face was wrecked. They're gonna ruin me, he whispered. May stared at him. You already ruined you, she said. Wade flinched. I didn't know about the forgery, he insisted. I swear. May studied him. Maybe he lied, maybe he didn't. Either way, she was done being his shield. You want to do one decent thing, she asked. Wade nodded fast. Yes, please, May leaned in. Tell me where Crown keeps his real ledger, she said. The one that shows who he owns. Wade's eyes flicked around like the street itself was listening. He swallowed. Crown's office, he whispered. Behind the painting. There's a safe. May's heart thumped. Wade's voice broke. He's got my debt note in there, he added. My whole life. He said if I don't obey, he'll take my land, my throat. May held his stare a beat longer. Then she nodded once. Good, she said. Now get out of my way. She turned. And across the street, one of Crown's riders sat on his horse, watching, not hiding, just letting her know, we see you. Caldera spoke low. They'll come for you, he warned. May didn't slow. Let 'em, she said. I'm tired of living like I'm already caught. Night fell. May stood outside Crown's office with Ortega and Caldera. Broadsheets were still fluttering in hands around town like sparks that hadn't decided what to burn yet. Ortega watched the corner, Caldera watched the courthouse. May's fingers found the door handle. Then she heard it, a click, right behind her, not a lock, a hammer on a gun. A voice whispered, close enough to feel on her skin, turn around slow. May froze. Then the voice got colder. You keep forgetting who runs this town. May lifted her hands away from the door, slow, because she knew that voice. Sheriff Pike stepped from the dark with a pistol aimed at her spine. And he smiled like he was about to write the ending himself. The click behind Maybelle Collins didn't echo. It didn't need to. A gun doesn't announce itself for drama. It announces itself for control. Turn around slow, Sheriff Pike whispered. May lifted her hands away from the door handle, slow, calm, like she'd practiced this her whole life. You keep forgetting who runs this town, Pike said. You keep forgetting what happens to people who get loud. May turned inch by inch. Pike stood in the dark with a pistol aimed at her spine like it was a pen, like he was ready to write the ending himself. Ortega's hand hovered near his belt. Reverend Caldera stood still, notebook tucked against his chest. May didn't flinch. You gonna shoot me over paperwork? She asked. Pike's smile was thin. Don't test me, May nodded like she understood. Then she said, soft, you can kill me. But you can't kill what I already put in people's hands. Pike blinked, just once, and May saw it, not bravery, fear. Pike didn't fear guns, he feared daylight. A voice called from across the street, firm. SH's right there. Footsteps followed, more than one. Lanterns bobbed into view, not a mob. A town that finally decided to look. Men in half-buttoned shirts. Women in shawls pulled tight, faces tense, awake, done pretending. At the front stood Lark from the print shop, ink on her hands, fire in her eyes, holding fresh broadsheets like they were proof in paper form. She pointed right at Pike. "We saw you," she said. "Gun on her right now." Pike's jaw tightened. "This is law business," he snapped. Caldera's voice stayed calm. "Then do it in daylight," he said, "where the law can be seen." Pike's pistol didn't lower, but his confidence did. May took a slow step away from the door. Pike tracked her. "You move again," he warned. "And what?" May cut in, voice flat. "You gonna shoot an old woman in front of half the town?" Pike's eyes flicked across the lanterns. He didn't answer. Then a new voice slid in, smooth as oil. "Sheriff." Sela's crown, polished boots, silver ring, eyes like a locked door. He stepped beside Pike like they'd rehearsed it. Crown looked at May like she was dust that learned to speak. "This is getting noisy," Crown said, "and I don't like noise." May stared back. "I'm sure," she replied. Crown's mouth twitched. "You're trespassing," he said, "violating a county order." May nodded once. "Then put it in ink," she said. Behind her, somebody in the crowd repeated it. Then another. "Put it in ink." "Put it in ink." Crown's eyes narrowed. He hated witnesses more than noise. He stepped closer, voice quieter. "Let's take this inside," he said. Crown's smile said it plain. "No witnesses, no problem." Pike shoved May forward with the gun still close. Ortega and Caldera followed. Lark slipped in too, fast as a shadow, before anyone could stop her. The office smelled like cigar smoke and ink, money trying to look clean. Crown shut the door like he was sealing a deal. Pike slapped a paper onto the desk. "Sign," Pike ordered. "Mark it." May looked down. Another agreement. Another cage dressed up like law. May didn't touch it. "I sign an X," she said. "I always have." Because nobody ever taught her letters. Because the world didn't care to. Crown leaned on the desk, voice smooth. "Then do your X," he said, "and this ends quiet." May lifted her eyes. "No," she said, "this ends in daylight." Pike pressed the pistol closer. "Enough." And that's when the door opened a crack, a soft creak. Crown snapped his head around. Wade Collins stepped in, trembling like a man walking into his own shame. Hat in his hands, face wrecked. Pike barked, "Get out." But Wade didn't. He swallowed hard. "You said if I didn't obey," Wade whispered to Crown, "you'd take my note. My land, my throat." He looked at May. It hurt him to do this. Then he held out a small key. "I got it," he said, "the safe key." The room went still. Crown's smile vanished. Pike's gun shifted toward Wade and Ortega moved. Not fast like a young man, fast like a man who's waited his whole life to stop a bully. He grabbed Pike's wrist and shoved it up. The gun fired. Bang. The shot punched into the ceiling. Plaster rained down. Lark yanked the door wide open. "Gun!" she screamed. "In here." Lantern light flooded the office. Crown lunged toward the desk. May was already moving. She snatched the key from Wade, crossed to the painting, and ripped it off the wall. Behind it, a safe, just like Wade said. Crown snarled. "That doesn't belong to you." May slammed the key in. Click, turn. The safe opened with a heavy sigh. Inside were ledgers, notes, receipts, bribes that looked like bookkeeping. Caldera grabbed the top ledger and flipped fast. His eyes widened. "Payments," he said, voice rising, "to Sheriff Pike, weekly." Lark leaned in sharp. "And names," she snapped. "Folks' names." May's stomach tightened as she read. Contracts, forged marks. Families trapped by debts that never ended. Then she saw the line that made Eli's grief snap into focus like lightning. A shipment log. Medicine. Rerouted. Signed by Crown. Caldera's voice went quiet. "This," he said, "is murder by paper." Crown reached for the ledger. Pike, wrestling with Ortega, shouted, "Stop them." But the office wasn't his anymore. Because the town was in the doorway now, witnesses breathing. And behind them stepped a man with a badge and travel dust on his coat. Judge Ashford's marshal, riding ahead of the traveling court to inspect the town before the judge arrived. His eyes took in the ceiling hole. The gun. The open safe. Then the ledger in Caldera's hands. "Who fired?" the marshal asked. Lark pointed without hesitation. "The sheriff," she said, "and Crown ordered it." The marshal's gaze snapped to Pike. "Sheriff Harlan Pike," he said. "Drop it." Pike froze. Because this wasn't local anymore. This was the kind of law Crown couldn't fix with a handshake. Crown tried to smile. "Now hold on," the marshal didn't blink. "Sela's Crown," he said. "You're coming with me." Crown's voice sharpened. "You don't know who I am." May lifted the ledger higher. "Oh, we know now," she said. "We got it in ink." Crown's eyes flicked across the crowd, calculating. Then he bolted for the back door like a man who'd never been told no, until now. Ortega lunged to block. Crown shoved him. May moved without thinking. She swung the ledger thick as a brick into Crown's shoulder. Crown stumbled, furious, and the marshal took him down hard. Crown hit the floor. His ringed hand scraped the wood. Power looked small. For one quiet second, May just stood there. She looked down at the ledger in her hands, and for the first time it wasn't heavy. Outside, the courthouse bell rang, not church, court. By sunrise, Eli Carter walked out of the jail, bruised. Angry free, he saw May waiting in the street, not collapsed, not rescued, standing. He crossed to her, slow like he didn't trust good news. "My barn?" he asked, voice tight. "Still standing," May said. Eli swallowed. "And you?" May lifted her chin. "I'm still standing too." Eli exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a year. "May," he started. May cut him off, gentle, firm. "Don't turn me into a miracle," she said. "I'm just a woman who got tired." Eli nodded once. "All right," he said, "then let's build." 2 days later, May stood at a table in the same town that laughed at her, and she signed a paper, not a cage, a partnership, no term. No guardian, no ownership, wages, profit share, freedom. She drew one clean mark, an X. When she finished, she looked at Eli. "You sure?" she asked. Eli's voice didn't shake. "I'm sure," he said. "This ranch don't live without you." Lark stood nearby, hands still ink-stained, eyes bright like she'd found a future. Caldera nodded, notebook closed. Ortega tipped his hat, and Wade stayed back. May didn't forgive him with a speech. She didn't destroy him either. She simply stopped carrying him. That was the punishment and the freedom. Months later, the ranch looked different, fence lined straight, trough fixed, barn repaired board by board, not because a rich man saved it, because two stubborn survivors refused to let the land die. One evening, May stood on the porch with coffee that still tasted like regret, just less. Eli leaned against the post beside her. Lark laughed inside the house, learning how to make beans without burning them. May stared out at the valley. "They told me I was done," she said. Eli glanced at her. "And?" he asked. May's mouth curved, small but real. "Turns out," she said, "I was just getting started." If you know somebody who's been treated like they expired, share this with them. Hit subscribe for more stories where the overlooked fight back. And drop a comment. Where are you watching from? Because no matter what anybody told you, you don't have an expiration date.